liability. And now that he no longer has presidential immunity, he's faced with nearly a dozen legal problems, many of which go back from the time before he was president. Now, 10 of the legal problems are civil lawsuits, including one by his own niece, 2 women who filed defamation lawsuits after accusing him of rape and sexual assault, and Congressman Eric Swalwell and Benny Thompson's separate lawsuits for violating civil rights in inciting a riot on January 6th. And while there's now a criminal investigation into efforts to overturn Georgia's election results, and courts in D.C., New York, and Georgia are moving to limit Trump's false statements on the election being stolen, the reality for the former president is that his biggest legal battle may be coming from Manhattan, as it's reported that the district attorney in Manhattan may be in the final stages of its investigation into Trump's financial records. One former top deputy said that there could be decisions on whether to charge Trump before DA Cyrus Vance leaves office in December. Quote, when the Manhattan's DA's office has your tax returns and they're bringing in hired guns like prominent former mob prosecutor Mike Pomerantz, who specializes in this type of work, you'd better grab yourself some good lawyers. Funny, since Donald Trump's A-team includes a delusional former mayor who's currently being investigated for his dealings in Ukraine, an effort that helped his client get impeached the first time. It also previously included Michael Cohen, who has now met with that DA 7 times and is reportedly being asked by senior officials to return for an 8th interview. Now, that caused President Nixon's former White House counsel, John Dean, to say, based on personal experience, quote, I assure you that you do not visit a prosecutor's office 7 times if they are not planning to indict those about whom you have knowledge. It is only a matter of how many days until DA Vance indicts Donald and company. There has never been a former president indicted or convicted in a criminal prosecution. But my next guest warns that, quote, a reckoning awaits requiring his personal participation in instances where he has no Fifth Amendment privilege to assert, and it is likely to be speedier and more direct than any criminal reckoning. Joining me now is the former United States attorney and professor at the University of Alabama School of Law, Joyce Vance. Joyce is also an MSNBC contributor. Good morning, my friend. Let's explore this thing that you wrote about not being able to invoke the Fifth Amendment. You write in the article, Donald Trump has famously expressed the view that only the guilty take the Fifth, but mere witness to events surrounding January 6th, lacking any Fifth Amendment privilege, would have to submit to depositions, which might prove fuel for the criminal investigation. Tell us what you mean by that.
Well, the Fifth Amendment is a double-edged sword if you're Donald Trump. He now faces civil litigation filed by 2 congressmen that implicates all of the events surrounding the insurrection. And in civil cases, parties get to take depositions. One way to get out of that deposition for Donald Trump or others around him would be to say, I have a Fifth Amendment right here. I could potentially be indicted for events around the insurrection, so you can't take my deposition. Of course, Trump has already told us his views about people who use the Fifth Amendment in that way. The other option would be to submit to a deposition, to answer questions, which you have to do under oath, and it submits you to the penalty of perjury if you lie. So this civil process provides an interesting mechanism for uncovering the truth.
You further write about civil suits. Civil lawsuits provide an alternate path to learning the truth and achieving a measure of accountability. I'm reminded that the Ku Klux Klan was broken in Alabama not by criminal prosecutions, but by a civil lawsuit that led to its bankruptcy. So civil suits are a viable option, even in things that maybe our viewers think should be criminal in nature.
Sure. You know, the issue here is this, Allie. Criminal cases, as the public knows, can move in a frustratingly slow fashion. They can linger on appeals for a long time. That doesn't mean they're not valuable. It just means that we have a system that, when it's properly functioning, protects the rights of criminal defendants. In civil cases, information tends to leak out at an earlier stage. You often have dispositive motions that can be filed or arguments in court where the truth comes to light. And ultimately, in a situation like the one Trump faces, where there are 10 pending civil lawsuits, it may well be the cumulative effect of those lawsuits, if he loses numerous damages, that could have a very bad impact on his finances, something that we know he's incredibly sensitive about. And some of these cases, Allie, also go to his personal finances, his corporate finances, where he infamously told Bob Mueller in the course of the Mueller investigation, my personal finances are a red line you can't cross. The civil cases may help us better understand why that was such an important red line for the former president.
And we sometimes have Michael Cohen join us, but one thing he can't do is talk about anything that he's talking to the Manhattan DA about. What do you make of the fact that he's had 7 interviews and has been invited back for an 8th? John Dean, when he was tweeting, was actually talking about himself as a witness in Watergate, being interviewed that many times.
Michael Cohen can explain a lot of the documentary evidence that the Manhattan DA now has in hand. He may have been around for a lot of the transactions. He may be looking at papers underlying the taxes and able to tell them who's in the room. He can really help guide them to the best witnesses and the best evidence and help them understand transactions that may have involved criminal conduct. So no, the fact that he's been there 7 and is now rumored to be going back for an 8th time is not good news for Trump.
Joyce, good to see you as always. Thank you. Joyce Vance, former U.S. Attorney in Alabama and an MSNBC contributor. And that does it for me. Thank you for watching. Catch me back here tomorrow morning.